Preparations for Typhoon Haiyan were well underway at the national level prior to its presence in the Philippine Area of Responsibility. The National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council, or NDRRMC, Operations Center, declared and maintained a red alert status and ensured continuous and expeditious coordination and dissemination of advisories to areas likely to be affected by the typhoon. Directives were issued to the regional DRIMCs, namely Regions 4A, 4B, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, Caraga, and the National Capital Region for them to accordingly prepare. And DRIMC meetings were held to coordinate government preparatory actions from the national to local levels. Situation report was issued on 6 November 2014, 2 days prior to the landfall, and response agencies such as the DSWD, or the Department of Social Welfare and Development, Department of Health, Public Works and Highways, the Armed Forces, the National Police, Fire Protection, and the Coast Guard were placed on heightened alert. All available assets and resources were put on standby, and others were deployed. On the 7th November 2014, the President went on a national television to warn the people in likely to be affected areas with special call for Leyte and Samar provinces where it was forecast to make landfalls. His Excellency emphasized that strong winds, rains, overflowing of rivers, and the possibility of lahar flows in areas near Mayon and Bulusan volcanoes will be brought about by Yolanda. The threat of storm surges that may reach 5 to 6 meters in more than 100 areas were also highlighted by the President himself. Adequate preparations for Haiyan were done. The Honorable Voltaire Gasmin, the Defense Secretary and the NDRIMC Chairman, and Honorable Marojas, the Interior and Local Government Secretary, and the Vice Chair for Disaster Preparedness went and were in Tacloban City to personally attend and monitor the preparations in the region. Emergency provincial DRRMC meetings were held to ensure actions were taken by the local government units. On November 8, 2013, Typhoon Haiyan made 6 landfalls in the Philippines. At 4 a.m., the first landfall over Giwan, Eastern Samar. At 7 a.m., the second landfall over Tolosa, Leyte. At 9 a.m., the third landfall over Daan, Bantayan, Cebu. At 10 a.m., the fourth landfall over Bantayan Island in Cebu. At 12 noon, the fifth landfall over Concepcion in Iloilo. And at 8 p.m., the sixth landfall over Busuanga in Palawan. These are the areas along the 100-kilometer diameter of Typhoon Yolanda through eastern, central, and western Visayas, southern Luzon, and the northern tip of Mindanao. Its effects. Several effects were brought about by Typhoon Haiyan. The storm surge in the provinces of Samar, Leyte, and Leyte in eastern Visayas caused a great number of deaths and destruction. The 320-kilometer-per-hour winds caused huge damage to lifelines, power, water, supply, communications, and transportation, paralyzed the industry, trade, and services in affected areas, and frontline responders were likewise became victims. And as of May 29, 2014, a total of 3,424,593 families, or a total of 16,078,181 persons were affected by the typhoon. The number of deaths functional response structure during the typhoon. Task Force Yolanda was created under the command of Lieutenant General Villarmino of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. And under this task force, we had 6 task forces, namely the Task Force on Food and Water, headed by the Social Welfare and Development Department, the Task Force Cadaver, headed by the Bureau of Fire Protection, the Task Force Debris Clearing and Cleaning, headed by the Metro Manila Development Authority and the Public Works and Highways Department, the Task Force Law and Order, headed by the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the National Police, and the Task Force Health, headed by the Health Department, and the Task Force Normalization, headed by the Vice Governor of Leyte and the City Administrator of Tacloban. In terms of personnel and other resources, we had a total of 35,489 personnel, 1,351 vehicles, 118 seacrafts, 163 aircrafts, and 28,361 other assets like gensets, life vests, engineering equipment for debris clearing operations deployed to various strategic areas to facilitate and expedite response and medical operations. Emergency communications facility through the combined efforts of the Armed Forces, the National Telecommunications Commission, the Social Welfare and Development Department, and the Office of Civil Defense, and the ASEAN AHA Center were established within 24 hours. The government orchestrated the efficient distribution of relief goods through the mobilization of the armed forces and foreign military assets, which also paved the deployment of medical teams and responders to Ground Zero and its environs. On cluster for early recovery and rehabilitation, to facilitate the recovery initiatives, 5 clusters were created by the Council, and these were the food and water distribution led by the Social Welfare, peace and order led by the Interior and Local Government Department, the shelter and reconstruction led by the Public Works and Highways, the social services co-led by Health and Education, and the livelihood, employment, and commerce led by the Trade and Industry Department. On rehabilitation and recovery, in the process of recovery and rehabilitation, the government of the Philippines has identified most affected sectors where physical assets and changes in the flow of production are reported, supply of goods and services are negated, and possible impact of macroeconomic is projected. As basis for the identification of various recovery and rehabilitation projects. For Typhoon Haiyan, the broad sectors are infrastructure, productive, social, and cross-sectoral, which includes governance and DRRM. The initial government's strategic framework, which provides the guide in recovery and reconstruction of the economy, lives and livelihood of people and communities in the areas affected by Typhoon Haiyan, was the Reconstruction Assistance on Yolanda, or the RAY 1. Under the National Economic Development Authority, RAY 1 presented requirements towards the full recovery and rehabilitation in the areas affected. For further validation of the damage loss, and needs assessment, the Post-Disaster Needs Assessment, or the PDNA, was conducted and led by the Office of the Civil Defense from January to March of 2014. And in conformity with the PDNA guiding principle that it should not begin until humanitarian assistance stage is completed or well underway. The PDNA further served as the basis of the recovery and rehabilitation assistance on areas hardest hit by Haiyan. Meanwhile, the President created the Office of the Presidential Assistance on the Rehabilitation and Recovery, or the OPAR, in order to expedite the rehabilitation and recovery process. The process of restoring the economic and social conditions to the affected areas at the very least to their pre-typhoon levels and further to a higher level of disaster resilience. The master plan for the rehabilitation and recovery is currently being formulated, while there are ongoing rehabilitation programs implemented on the ground. The lessons learned. Notwithstanding the ill effects of Typhoon Haiyan or Yolanda, we have undoubtedly gained significant and unprecedented experiences that now provides us all with profound lessons where we can, together with all stakeholders, leverage and optimize on the good practices and revisit areas, issues, and concerns where we experience gaps and evident shortcoming needing better and improved practices. On risk reduction, looking back, the experience we had with Typhoon Haiyan stressed the urgent need for risk reduction to be translated into action. Concrete, deliberate, and targeted capacity building is on top of the list of order of things that need to be continuously and immediately done, both at the national and local level. And strengthening of governance is an area that needs significant improvement. We are due to provide responsible, accountable, and transparent governance. However, the wherewithal for the local leaders to perform what is expected from them must also be provided. In the context of the four thematic areas in the Philippine disaster risk reduction management, we have identified particular gaps needing enhancement. On prevention and mitigation, the following initiatives are being undertaken to address these gaps. Enhance pre-disaster risk assessment. Improve understanding and knowledge of risk information. Mainstreaming of DRRM in local plans, programs, and budgets. And ensure end-to-end monitoring, forecasting, and early warning systems. On disaster preparedness, risk appreciation and understanding and appropriate preparation. There is a need to level off the awareness and understanding of LGUs and community members, especially in high-risk areas. DRRM, climate change adaptation capacities, or DRRM councils, offices, and operations centers. In particular, technical capacity enhancement must be an integral part of the DREAM program. Local disaster and preparedness and response policies, plans, and systems. The plans, policies, and systems need to be responsive to the concomitant risks. A need for improved and strengthened mutually reinforcing multi-stakeholder partnerships, especially between LGUs, or local government units, and the national government agencies, and coordination among key local and international players and stakeholders. On disaster response, the need of a well-established, known, and standardized set of systems, procedures, and policies during the disaster response and relief operations. These systems and procedures ranges from command and control to equal opportunity and availment of basic services in community-ravaged areas. Integrated and coordinated search, rescue, and retrieval system was a challenge at that time, thus improvement of the guidelines as well is underway. The principle of building back better should be a significant consideration in rehabilitation and recovery. Infrastructure, shelter, government buildings, education facilities should be designed to promote resiliency to multi-hazards. DRRM, and CCA-sensitive development is currently being promoted. The availability of economic options must be planned ahead. The need for a set of diversified source of income, either through the restoration of the old livelihood options or development of new or additional ones, must be immediately addressed. Further, safety nets to transfer risks for all sectors is highly encouraged to be developed and implemented. Systems and procedural flexibility to address developing unplanned and unforeseen situations, such as in the case of a mass exodus of disaster victims to urban areas and or neighboring communities, also needs to be stepped up. These profound experiences and lessons learned from Typhoon Haiyan has given the Philippines both an opportunity and the responsibility to share to the whole world what it was like to be visited by the fierce Typhoon Haiyan or Yolanda. But with pride and honor, the Filipinos shall overcome this experience, but let it be told so that we, all of us, may improve on the way we all do things on disaster risk reduction management and climate change adaptation. This ends my presentation. Maraming salamat po. Thank you very much.
Yes. We will, may we call on Secretary Arsenio Balisacan from the National Economic Development Authority to make a presentation on reconstruction assistance on Yolanda, or Ray 2, after which we will, I think just to cluster, we love clustering, We will have Secretary Soliman, and then we will entertain some questions on the floor, one or two in view of the time limitation.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone.